Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. Craig Hoffman here, Logan Paulson there. We are off this week from the Take Command pregame show, so we're not at Tap Sports Bar, but we'll be back there ahead of the Miami game at MGM National Harbor. But if you want to listen on the radios, you're driving to wherever you're going to watch the game on Thanksgiving, make sure you check out our guy Denton Day, who's holding down the fort. So there will be a Take Command pregame show. It'll just be on the radio, no YouTube stream. I'm going to try to hop on with Denton, so looking forward to that. But our guy Denton Day is doing a great job always, and we're happy to have him fill in for us on Thanksgiving Day. And so make sure that you check him out there. All right, the offense. I like watching this game back was so frustrating because they couldn't get anything going, in part because they couldn't get started, right? They have 2 turnovers on their first 2 possessions. And then kind of mid-second quarter, they start to find a little bit of a vibe, and then they get into the third, and they keep it going. They're running the football really well, and then Chris Rodriguez fumbles, and it just feels like the air totally comes out of the balloon. And by the way, that's right when the dam breaks for the defense, too. Like the next play from scrimmage, I think, is the toss crack to Saquon. If I'm remembering correctly, timing-wise, in that third quarter, like it's end of the third quarter when he does, and it just feels like, okay, like this was cute, Giants. You guys are trying to be competitive, and you're trying to do the thing where you beat the Commanders because you always beat the Commanders, right? But you're not a good football team, and it's time to take the game back. And then he fumbles, and then they don't take the game back, and it really is like there's a lot to talk about, but you can't do any of the talking about the process without the talking about the fact that it's impossible to win with 6 turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, really, we're going to give you some deeper analysis, but like that's the main point. Like 80% of this game is the fact they turn the football over so much. Like you can't execute good ball. And I think we talked about this on the post game reaction show, and going back and watching it, I feel like they're like effort fumbles. And what I mean by that, it's like they're trying too hard to like break another tackle. Like the one on Logan, like I don't know how you hold on that ball. Like someone was talking to me about it, like, oh, he's got to hold on. It's like basically this has happened to me. So speaking from experience, if you take that shoulder pad or that helmet right on the ball, it's like damn near impossible to hold on to it. So like, and I don't think he's got hands on, like it's tight.
Yeah, he's got like 2 hands on the ball. He's fallen down. And it's just a direct hit to the right part of the ball. And
I hate to I don't care how strong you are, like unless you're down, like that ball is coming out. Like I had one when we were playing Kansas City, it was raining, high and tight, like kind of put my shoulder on a guy, and I didn't see this other defender coming, and he put his helmet like literally on the ball. And I remember looking down and watching the ball squirt across my body towards the sideline. And I was just like, I even had 2 hands on it. It just squirted right through both my hands. So again, like that's tough. Even the Chris Rodriguez.
Or bicep curls, bro. Come on.
Yeah, I need to do something. Yeah. Even the one with Chris Rodriguez, like he's running hard. Like I thought he had a great game. Like obviously excluding the fumble, but like his vision, his power, his contact balance, it's like, man, like that's awesome. As a pure runner, like he's probably the best on the team. But then he's running hard. He's fighting for the extra yard. Ball comes out. B. Rob's fumble late. Like he's trying his face off. Ball comes out. So, and Pringle, we're going to talk about him for a second. He's got a good return going, fighting for extra yards. Ball comes out. So I think it's just a little bit serendipity, a little bit of stressing about trying to make a play, and you probably don't have to. Just like the one that Chris Rodriguez is so interesting because it's like literally a 7-yard run, and he's fighting for an 8th yard, and the ball comes out. It's like that's a good play.
It is, and I think it's it's just knowing when to say when, and like we've had enough, and like let me get down safely and live to fight another down. But that's not the nature of football. It's really easy to sit here in a cushy studio or the comfort of our homes and be like, yeah, man, just take the 7 yards and get down. And as a coach, like that's probably what we'd be saying is like, hey, you gotta just know when you're exposed. Like, hey, if I'm in this position, if I'm Logan Thomas, like I'm exposed, that hit is available. And because you've already made contact that there's guys rallying to the ball to punch it out at that point, especially against the Giants. Like that's what they do. They're coached on that stuff very, very well. This is something they do week in and week out. So like you got to know, hey, if you take contact and you're not like fight for yards, but like also like hug the hell out of the ball and try to get down because you're going to have guys coming in and punching at it. And then you get in the emotions of the game and you're trying to fight your face off. And that's the nature of it. So it's a level of discipline. But that's so much easier said than done. Like that is the solution, right? We can acknowledge that while also going like, God, that's so hard on a game day to execute.
It's true. And I think one of the fumbles, the fumble that taught me this was against the Giants in 2014. I caught like a 5-yard out, and like I was a big guy and DBs didn't like tackling me. So I was up and I was kind of rumbling through some contact, and the corner, so it was the safety and the linebacker, were on my legs. And he came up and I could feel him like attacking the fingers of my hand. And I was like, oh no, like this ball's about to come out. And I could not get to the ground quick enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, because he was just literally like peeling the fingers off the ball. Mm-hmm. And I just think it just taught me after that. I was like, the most important thing is the ball. And sometimes you need to play like that just to remember like, hey, like as much as I want to be big and bad and dent face masks and knock people on the ground when I got the ball in my hands, like, that's the thing that is the most important about this game. And sometimes it takes one of these to remind you of that. So obviously that's the main point. I think the secondary point here is something that we talked about when we were watching clips, is that I think the Giants deserve a ton of credit. Like when you look at the concepts that EB was running and this offense was running, I thought the quick game was there for the most part. I thought there was some stuff early where the Giants did some creative stuff and took some stuff away, but on the whole, the quick game was there. I think it was like the mid-level shot and the deep shot that the Giants did such a good job of taking away from a coverage standpoint. And one of the reasons they did a good job of that is because their rush was really dialed in. Like Dexter Lawrence was an absolute unit. Like he just did such a fantastic job of just creating consistent pressure, being disruptive in the run game. The line stunts they ran, like the way they ran their line stunts, I thought, especially on third down, just exploited pressure looks, exploited protection looks, excuse me. Like we just saw the one that led to Dexter Lawrence sack, like slides going left. It's a 5-man pro, man side to the right, and they run a stunt in a way that makes it hard for the guard and center to be right, and you end up getting a sack. And they did that, with 4 rushers. And I thought they just did a really good job of consistently creating pressure. And it wasn't just Dexter Lawrence, obviously Kayvon Thibodeau. And everyone says, oh, Leno has a hard time with Kayvon Thibodeau. But I thought in addition to Kayvon Thibodeau having some good rushes, there was also, they moved him around the front quite a bit. They stunted him quite a bit. And that was it was masterfully done. It was a well-coached defensive line, and the secondary was well coached in terms of how they were matching concepts, and it made it very challenging for the offense outside of the turnovers to be successful.
There's a couple questions I guess I have. So it feels like I'm going to make them kind of cohesive, right? It feels like EB runs the offense, and there's not, I don't want to say a care, but there's not like an emphasis on personnel, right? Whether his own or the other team. Right. So if I'm designing a protection plan, I remember talking to coaches about this like back in the day when I was on the beat, and you're about to face the Rams, and it's like, hey, if we lose, we lose, but we're not letting Donald beat us. Like we have to have a protection plan for 99. We are not going to let the thing that they want to do make it the path of least resistance to beat us. By the same token, on the offensive side of personnel, it doesn't seem like there's a crazy emphasis in getting the ball to the playmakers, Terry, Jahan, et cetera, where like Logan Thomas, again, has a ton of targets, and Logan's a good player, but he's not as explosive as Jahan and Terry. And this offense hasn't been designed for wide receivers in a while in Kansas City because Travis Kelce was their best player, and it worked out that way. You go back to, and then like the other thing too is, I was talking about this with someone in the locker room after the game, like, when this offense was cooking in Kansas City with Tyreek, you can't count as a regular wide receiver.
Correct.
Because he breaks coverage with speed in a way that literally no one else. Like, Jahan and Terry run 4 threes, and Tyreek smokes them. Right. They're 95 on Madden speed. He's 114. Right. And so, you watch him run through cover 2, and you're like, okay, well, the routes that are deep routes that quote unquote should work because they used to work with Tyreek Hill aren't going to work with these guys because they're regular NFL fast. And so I just wonder, when you watch the tape of a game like this, is it too easy to let, and look, Dexter Lawrence is great. His ability to overcome stuff is why he's him.
Right.
But is it too easy for Dexter Lawrence to get the things that he wants and for Wink to get the things he wants with Dexter Lawrence? And could that be avoided with some quick, easy stuff to playmakers where you don't have to win with the pen and you can win with Jahan Dotson juking someone in space?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, there was some stuff like that in this game. There was a screen early to Terry. There was a couple slants to Terry. Terry's
It seems like in some big situations they did go to Terry, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is the one situation where it's like, oh, it's third down, we got to have it. Like, let's get Terry isolated on a slant and he'll win.
And they did a great, and so when I say quick game, that's all quick game stuff.
Yeah.
That they did a good job of. They ran a screen, just like a now screen to Diami, and I thought Diami did a great job getting 8 yards on that. So there was stuff like that in the game, like a plan for the pressure. I think the thing that was surprising to me, and you were talking about protection plan, is I think one of the things that I, going into the game, I was like, well, Wink's going to bring a lot of pressure, and he brought a fair amount. And when we say pressure, he's bringing like 5-man pressures. He's not bringing his exotic blitzes the way that you kind of thought he would, right? He really had a good 5-man rush plan, 5 and 4-man rush plan.
Yeah, a lot of simulated pressure.
Correct, which is something that I was not expecting. So when it comes to planning for Dexter Lawrence, I think it's like a secondary concern to Wink. And I think in this case, like you had a plan for Wink's protection issues that he presents, but that does compromise your ability to develop a good, cohesive, comprehensive plan against Dexter Lawrence. And I do think that they did some stuff, like they sent the slide to him, they left chippers in, but ultimately, like the thing about a nose guard, unlike a 3 technique, is you can't slide the pro to a nose necessarily. And I think that's one of the things, like on that protection we were just describing, where you get the sack by Dexter Lawrence, like he's playing a true nose, and they have everyone's covered up. They have 5 kind of potential rushers at the line of scrimmage. It's a 5-man pro, right? So Dexter Lawrence starts at the nose and he stunts, and he basically picks Chris Paul while he's pass protecting number 55, who is now looping to the opposite A gap. And so because Dexter Lawrence is so good, you have 2 guys on him right there, right? But because of the protection rules and because of how the slide works, he doesn't know, Larson doesn't know if Cosme's able to help him in the slide or not, because he's a nose guard. If it's a 3 technique, you have a natural double team there right now, right, with the center and the guard. But because of how they've spaced the front here, you can't do that. And I think that's one of the advantages, like you hear guys around, commenting on, this is like really nerdy football stuff, but the advantages of having a pass rushing nose are really dramatic, because they allow you to find some of these matchups that are really hard for protections to account for. And that's what you saw in this game a little bit. And obviously Dexter Lawrence is going to win one-on-ones, but I do think there is an element of scheme elevating his production in this game. And like when you go back and watch the clips, like I don't want to say every play, but it feels like every play, whether it's a run or whether it's a pass, he is getting penetration, he's being disruptive. And I think for some of the reasons we just described.
Yeah, he's just really freaking good.